Mr. Beniti, let's go to enforcement. You go around and you see a building under construction. Sometimes you see that red mark, X. And then maybe 2 months after, you see that the building is now painted and everybody is happy. Some of these buildings we have seen, you know, you started out as a bungalow and then you decide to build 3, 4 story, you know. What is the role of enforcement in this and how effective has it been?
Well, the red X mark says different things. It doesn't say the building is not up to standard. Probably they started construction without completing the approval process.
Okay.
That usually is the reason for the X.
Okay.
It's rarely for substandard work.
Okay.
All right. Now, enforcement says that from the get-go, parameters have been laid down for actualizing the design. The involvement of the professionals in the building industry are involved at every process. Now, this is how it works. The enforcers have professionals, the builders have professionals. So when they come for inspection, they are meeting themselves on a level playing field. So we need to think about, in enforcement, capacity building. When the enforcers come for inspection, they are coming to check for A, B, C, D, E, the materials that are being used, the cube test results for the concrete that has been used to cast a slab, the tensile strength of the reinforcements that have been used, are they adequate? As designed, is that what has been put on ground? So when there is a breakdown of these things, what is the recourse? This building that collapsed has stayed up that long. Now, who is being held accountable for why it has stayed that long? Has the general manager of LAPSCA, for instance, who has he held responsible in his office? Now, that is enforcement, because where there is no punishment, then everybody can do what they want.
And it will keep
Unfortunately,
happening.
hardly anybody has been punished for building collapse in our climes. Hardly anybody.
Well, it looks like something is going to happen after this one.
Frankly,
Because of the number of people who have died and the number of children who have died.
That's why I
talking
spoke
about building capacity. We also have to think about building capacity for rescue operations, such as we have seen.
Absolutely.
Because it looked like, first of all, the crowd, did those who were going on the rescue operation have access? And then the bulldozers. I think it was one of you who was mentioning that somebody actually made a call that the bulldozers were pressing on them or something. So we also need to train people who are going to take charge when things like this happen, so that they do not end up killing more people than they actually save in the process.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of lessons that should be learned, and I hope they will be learned. It's very unfortunate, but there are a lot of lessons, and I think one of them, as you've mentioned, is that we must be prepared. We cannot afford to assume that it won't happen, and then we just react. We need to be proactive. We need to plan that in the event that such a thing happens, who do we go to? How do we do it? How do we approach? I can't blame the crowd that rushed there, because that is one good thing I will say about Nigerians. They are selfless. They just, when I go to these unfortunate collapse sites, you see people strip off with their bare hands. They're lifting concrete and things, but that shouldn't always be the way. If it was elsewhere, there would be a lot of other preparedness. There would be things like sniffer dogs who would tell you where exactly human beings are. You know, there would be a coordinated way, the bulldozers. But I just want to also, I'm sorry to go back, just to talk about enforcement. Because again, when we talk of lessons learned, anytime enforcement is mentioned, we normally think to government and government officials, and they have a role to play. But in enforcement, the general public needs to play a role. I'll give you an example. If this same building had been in the UK, there would have been one 87-year-old woman looking through her window, and she would have gone to her phone and said, called up the officials and said, I know that this building has been sealed or has been crossed. Why are people still there? The general public must play a role. You call it whistleblowing, call it whatever you had. We cannot stand and watch whilst our children are
And the
dying.
rule should also include, if we decide to build a house, we should also follow the rules.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on this morning. We've been speaking with an architect who is also an expert on construction and plumbing solution, Ovie Beniche. Thank you for joining us this morning. And the Secretary, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, Engineer Bright Ukbono. And of course, the former president of the Institute, Engineer Kunle Adebajo. We hope we don't have to talk about this, and you know, a lot of things put in place to ensure that our buildings don't get to collapse.